What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. Today, I wanted to take a minute and talk to you guys a little bit about something that's really important to economics. We have spent a lot of time this semester talking about microeconomics. Uh, Microeconomics is like we talked about way back at the beginning of the semester, if you remember, that microeconomics is all about the individual decisions that we make, the choices that we make. And we can take a look at when we say micro and the individual, we're talking about consumers, we're talking about how businesses act and why they act the way that they do. On the grander scale, literally, is macroeconomics. And if you get in the DeLorean and go back to the beginning of the semester, you remember that we did talk about the difference between micro and macro. Today, we're going to focus on one of the major topics of macroeconomics, and that is something called GDP. And GDP stands for gross domestic product. And the gross domestic product is really the way that the United States measures itself against other countries, or any economy really, and how it measures itself against other countries. If you take a look at where the United States falls in different compared to different countries, we would just type in GDP ranking, and we can see from a quick Google search that the United States is number one in the world, according to the International Monetary Fund, with a GDP of $20.4 trillion. And China comes in at 13.4 trillion, and then you can see it goes down from there. What we do need to realize, though, that is, yes, we have a gigantic GDP, but if you remember that website that I took you to a long time ago, and it would have been wise if I would have had this pulled up. Here we go, usdebtclock.org. Our debt is tremendous. So right now, while we do have a GDP of $20.4 trillion, we are working at a debt of $24.7 trillion. So we have a larger debt compared to what our actual GDP is. So while it seems like we have this big number and we seem like we're number one, we are actually incurring a debt. So that's something we need to keep in mind. Okay, let's go back to what is gross domestic product, GDP. Okay, this is really where we're taking a look at all the stuff that we make in a country, and this PowerPoint is available for you guys, so I'm not going to go over every line. It talks about the final goods and services, everything that we make in our country and that we sell to our own consumers, and then we just sell to consumers overseas. And like I said before, it really shows us not only where do we measure up against other countries, but it also says, it tells us how we're doing compared to years prior, how we're doing compared to quarters prior, like how do we do in the first quarter, how do we do in the second quarter, what's our forecasting. There's a lot of different things that we look at it. So when we're looking at calculating GDP, there's a few different things that go into calculating our GDP. Okay, the first one is consumption. All right, consumption is all the stuff that we buy, and what we need to realize, and we're going to talk about this more in a minute, is that it's everything that we've bought, and that's like the final product. So examples of things that go into our GDP are any food purchases that you make. If you're going to go on vacation, you go get haircuts, you spend money on clothes, you go watch the movies, all these things that you actually are paying for, as long as it's made here in America, it's going to go towards our GDP. So our consumer consumption is a big factor in GDP. All right. Another huge factor is investments. All right. This is money that we put into new businesses, buying a new house. The key is new house. Like if we wanted to build a brand new house, we could do that. If we're a farmer and we buy a new machines or a new tractor for our farm, if we build a new factory, if we build or buy new machines, all these things are going to go in because they are investing into our company. And that money that we had to pay someone to build a new house. We had to pay someone to build a new machine or a factory. All those things um, go into calculating our GDP. Another thing that's calculated in the U.S. is GDP is the spending of our government. All right, so on the federal, state, and local level, we have many projects that take government money. So, like you see the examples there: roads, education, military, parks, all those different things. Anytime we put money, we take federal money or state money or local money and put it into a program, that's going to help our GDP. The last one is that we have to take a look at is the difference between an export and an import. All right, export are all the things that we ship to other countries. We definitely count that towards our GDP. If we're selling stuff to China or France or anywhere else, we're bringing money into our country, and that's a great help. But there is also a lot of things that we can't provide ourselves, so we have to buy from foreign companies. So when we do that, we have to import. So to figure out what we're going to calculate with our GDP, we have to take our exports and we have to subtract how much we imported. So if we exported $1 trillion worth of stuff, but we imported $1.2 trillion worth of stuff, we would actually be losing money. Okay. So we take all these different things. We take the consumption, we take the investments, we take the government spending, and then we add in once we figure out our exports minus our imports, and this tells us what our GDP is. Okay. I'll draw you to the other thing that I put in this little infographic that I put up. And again, it's what does GDP calculate? All right. In a lot of times we do things for the year. All right. So C, consumer consumption, I, investment, G, government expenditures, and then we subtract out or add whatever our exports minus our imports. So you can see this is from 2015. 68% of our GDP came from consumption, 17% of our GDP came from investment, 18% came from government spending, but then we lost 3% because of exports. Okay, and that calculates our gross domestic product. Okay, so when we talk about consumption, we really need to talk about what's included and what's not included. Like I mentioned before, all final products are included. All right, so this infographic does a really good job. Okay, if you look at it, if you're looking at the left column in green, is all the things that are calculated in our GDP. The column on the right, which is a yellow mustardy brown or mustardy color, is the things that are not included. Okay, so you go to Starbucks, you buy a morning cup of coffee, that's included in our GDP. If you go to Panera and you buy a bagel, that's counted in our GDP. But the flour that Panera uses to make all their things does not count. That's an intermediate good. That's something that is used to make a final good product. Okay. Company makes a new factory. Absolutely. Brand new factory. Perfect. You go to a thrift store and you buy a used t-shirt, does not count because that shirt was not made and sold originally in the current year. So it has to be something made this year. So if you go thrift shopping or buy used, it doesn't count. You build a new school in your city, that's going to count. You sell fighter jets to Canada, that's going to count. You purchase stocks and bonds, that's not going to count. That's financial transactions. That's not helping our consumer end game. Social Security, not going to count. Okay. So those are things that are really important. So again, just to reiterate, GDP is the gross domestic product, and it measures our final value of goods and services. It helps us figure out where we stand on the world scale. You're going to take a look at our consumption. You're going to take a look at investments. You're going to take a look at government spending, and you're going to subtract out any the exports, imports that we have, and you're going to get your GDP. Okay. This is all going to help you. And the assignment that I'm going to have you work on, if you go back to our classroom, is this one little handout. It's called GDP practice. All right. And what you're going to do is you're going to look at some different scenarios as soon as this loads up, and you're going to tell me whether or not you think that it's going to be included. So we'll do number one together. Right now, it says a farmer purchases a new tractor. All right. So there's a couple things that I need to look at. The biggest thing is that it says new tractor. All right. That's going to be my keyword. And when I see that he buys a new tractor, he's definitely going to help our GDP. And I have to choose C for consumption, I for investment, G for government, or XM for export, import, or if I didn't think it was going to be counted towards our GDP, I would put NC. I think it is going to be counted toward our GDP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put an I, because I believe that it's just definitely an investment. A farmer buying a new tractor is definitely going to help out his business and his farm. And I think that it's going to increase our GDP. All right. So what then you're going to go ahead and do is go through and think and look at the infographic and look at that little slideshow that I have, and you're going to tell me whether or not you think GDP would be affected or not, and whether it would be consumption, income, government, or export import kind of a thing. Scenario where we're importing things from a foreign company. Okay. So you're going to work on this. And it's going to be due the next time we meet. I'll be available on chat or email to answer any questions you might have on this. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks. Have a good one.